Hey everyone. It's actually been forever since I last been on this channel, and I'm very sorry for it, but I've just been very busy overall, and um a lot of stuff's been going on. Um and I decided to come back mostly because of um it's not really a challenge. I don't know what word it'd be, but it'd be like where you read every day in August for the American Cancer Society. And I am going to use that as a reason to get back on this channel and get back to this series again. Um, and I will be posting a video every day in August. So um I think that'll be how many chapters is this book? We're going to be doing The Accused, so it's 25. So um I will read this one for the entire month and start on the next book. And I'll finish that one uh before taking a break again. Hopefully not a year long as this break has been, but I do have other channels that I take care of. So that's one reason why I haven't been updating here. Um, they're all for specific little things. But I have been neglecting this. But as far as this, I almost said challenge. But as far as this little fundraiser goes, I will post a link to my fundraiser page, and you can donate as little or as much as you can afford, and it is not required. Um, all my videos are free to watch. Um, but it's just something, if you want to donate to the American Cancer Society, feel free to do so. All proceeds go directly to them, so I won't be getting a cent of it, at all, but that's perfectly fine with me. But as far as the link goes, I'll probably be posting it either in a community post, or if I don't, then I'll post a link to it in the descriptions of the videos. But they'll have more details about it then. But let's get to The Accused, which I haven't read, and I actually got the order wrong. I just realized it when I was trying to look it up, that The Accomplice is actually the last book in the series. So it was published in 2019. But right now we're going to do, hopefully in the right order, but apparently the third book is The Accused, which I am going to be reading, start reading today. But let's get into it. All right. All right. Chapter 1. The accused was a wealthy man by the name of Pete Duffy, and his alleged crime was murder. According to the police and the prosecutors, Mr. Duffy strangled his lovely wife in their attractive home on the 6th fairway of a golf course where he, the accused, was playing golf that day alone. If convicted, he would spend the rest of his life in prison. If acquitted, he would walk out of the courtroom a free man. As things turned out, the jury did not find him guilty or not guilty. This was his second trial. 4 months earlier, the first trial had ended suddenly when Judge Henry Gantry decided it would be unfair to continue. He declared a mistrial and sent everyone home, including Pete Duffy, who remained free on bond. In most murder cases, the accused cannot afford to post a bond and stay out of jail while waiting on a trial. But because Mr. Duffy had money and good lawyers, he had been free as a bird since the police found his wife's body and the state accused him of killing her. he had been seen around town, dining in his favorite restaurants, watching basketball games at Stratton College, attending church with greater frequency, and of course playing lots of golf. As he waited on his first trial, he seemed unconcerned with the prospects of a trial and the possibility of prison. Now, though, facing a second trial and with a new eyewitness ready to be used by the prosecution, Pete Duffy was rumored to be very worried. The new eyewitness was Bobby Escobar, a 19-year-old illegal immigrant who was working at the golf course on the day Miss Duffy was murdered. He saw Mr. Duffy enter his home at about the same time she died, then hurry away and resume his golf game. For a lot of reasons, Bobby did not come forward until the first trial was underway. Once Judge Gantry heard Bobby's story, he declared a mistrial. Now, with Bobby ready to testify, most of the folks in Strattonburg, who had been closely watching the Duffy case, were expecting a guilty verdict. It was almost impossible to find someone who believed Pete Duffy did not kill his wife. And it was also difficult to find a person who did not want to watch the trial. A murder trial in the Strattonburg courthouse was a rare event. Indeed, murder was rare in Stratton County, and a large crowd began gathering at 8 a.m., just after the front doors of the courthouse opened. The jury had been selected 3 days earlier. It was time for the courtroom drama to begin. At 8:40, Mr. Mount got his 8th grade class quiet and called the roll. All 16 boys were present. Homeroom lasted for only 10 minutes before the boys went off to first period Spanish with Madame Monique. Mr. Mount was in a hurry. He said, "Okay, men, you know what today is the first day of the Pete Duffy trial, round 2. We were allowed to watch the first day of the first trial, but as you know, my request to watch the second trial was denied." Several of the boys hissed and booed. Mr. Mount raised his hands. Enough. However, as our esteemed principal, Miss Gladwell, has agreed to allow Theo to watch the opening of the trial and report back to us. Theo. Theodore Boone jumped on his feet and, like the lawyers he watched and admired, walked purposely to the front of the room. Carried a yellow legal pad, just like a real lawyer. He stood by Mr. Mount's desk, paused for a second, and looked at the class as if he were indeed a trial lawyer preparing to address the jury. Since both his parents were lawyers and he had practically been raised in their law offices, and he hung out in courtrooms while the other 8th graders in Strattonburg Middle School were playing sports and taking guitar lessons and doing all the things that normal 13-year-olds tend to do. And since he loved the law and studied it and watched it and talked about little else, the rest of his class was quick to yield to Theo when discussing legal matters. When it came to the law, Theo had no competition, at least not in Mr. Mount's 8th grade homeroom. Theo began, "Well, we saw the first day of the first trial 4 months ago, so you know the lineups and the players. The lawyers are the same. The charges are the same. Mr. Duffy is still Mr. Duffy. There is a different jury this time around, and, of course, there is the issue of new eyewitness who did not testify during the first trial." "Guilty," yelled Woody from the back of the room. Several others chimed in and added their agreement. "All right," Theo said. "Show of hands. Who thinks Pete Duffy is guilty?" 14 of 16 hands shot upward with no hesitation whatsoever. Chase Whipple, a mad scientist who took pride in never agreeing with the majority, sat with his arms folded across his chest. Theo did not vote, but instead became irritated. "This is ridiculous. How can you vote guilty before the trial has started? Before we know what the eyewitness will say, before anything happens? We've talked about the presumption of innocence. In our system, a person charged with a crime is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. Pete Duffy will walk into the courtroom this morning completely innocent and will remain innocent until all the witnesses have testified and all the proof is before the jury. The presumption of innocence, remember?" Mr. Mount stood in a corner and watched Theo at his best. He had seen this before many times. The kid was a natural on his feet, the star of the 8th grade debate team, of which Mr. Mount was the faculty advisor. Theo pressed on, still pretending to be indignant at his classmates' rush to judgment. And proof beyond a reasonable doubt, remember? What's the matter with you guys? Guilty, Woody yelled again, and got some laughs. Theo knew it was a lost cause. He said, Okay, can I go now? Sure, Mr. Mount replied. The bell rang loudly, and all 16 boys headed for the door. Theo darted into the hallway and raced to the front office where Miss Gloria, the school secretary, was on the phone. She asked Theo because his mother had handled her first divorce, and because Theo had once given her some unofficial advice when her brother was caught driving drunk. She handed Theo a yellow release form signed by Miss Gladwell, and he was off. The clock above her desk gave the time exactly 8:47. Outside, at the bike rack by the flagpole, Theo unlocked his chain, wrapped it around the handlebars, and sped away. If he obeyed the rules of the road and stayed on the streets, he would arrive in front of the courthouse in 15 minutes. But if he took the usual shortcuts and raced through the alleyway or two, and cut across a backyard here and another one there, and ran at least 2 stop signs, Theo could make it in about 10 minutes. On this day, he did not have time to spare. He knew the courtroom was already packed. He would be lucky to get a seat. He flew through an alley, got airborne twice, then darted through the backyard of a man he knew, an unpleasant man, a man who wore a uniform and tried to act as though he were a real officer of the law, when in fact he was little more than a part-time security guard. His name was Buck Bolin, or Buck Bologna, as some people whispered behind his back. And Theo saw him occasionally hanging around a courthouse. As Theo flew across Mr. Bolin's backyard, he heard a loud, angry voice. Get out of here, kid. Theo turned to his left just in time to see Mr. Bolin throw a rock in his direction. The rock landed very close by, and Theo pedaled even harder. That was close, he thought. Perhaps he should find another route. 9 minutes after leaving the school, Theo wheeled to the stop in front of the Stratton County Courthouse, quickly chained his bike to the rack, and sprinted inside, up the grand staircase, and to the massive front doors of Judge Gantry's courtroom. There was a crowd at the door, spectators in a line trying to get in, and TV cameras with their bright lights, and several grim-faced deputies trying to keep order. Theo's least favorite deputy in all of Strattonburg was an old grouching man named Gossett. And as luck would have it, Gossett saw Theo trying to ease his way through the crowd. Where do you think you're going, Theo? Gossett growled. It should be obvious where I'm going, Theo thought quickly to himself. Where else would I be going at this moment, at the beginning of the biggest murder trial in the history of our country? But being a wise guy would not help matters. Theo whipped out his release from school and said sweetly, I have permission from my principal to watch the trial, sir. Gossett snatched the release and glared at it as if he might have to shoot Theo if his paperwork didn't measure up. Theo thought about saying, if you need some help, I'll read it for you, but again bit his tongue. Gossett said, This is from school. This is not a pass to get inside. You have permission from Judge Gantry. Yes, sir, Theo said. Let me see it. It's not in writing. Judge Gantry gave me verbal permission to watch the trial. Gossett frowned even harder, shook his head with great authority, and said, Sorry, Theo, the courtroom is packed. There are no more seats. We're turning people away. Theo took his release and tried to appear as if he might burst into tears. He backtracked, turned around, and headed down the long hallway. When Gossett could no longer see him, he ducked through a narrow door and bounced down a utility staircase, one used by the janitors and service technicians. On the first floor, he eased along a dark, cramped corridor that ran under the main courtroom, the main courtroom above. then stepped nonchalantly into a break room where the courthouse employees gathered for coffee, donuts, and gossip. Well, hello, Theo, said lovely Jenny, by far Theo's favorite clerk in the entire courthouse. Hello, Jenny, he said. With a smile, he kept walking across the small room. He appeared into a utility closet, came out on the other side into a landing, which led to another hidden staircase. In decades past, this has been used to haul convicts from jail to the main courtroom to face the wrath of judges, but now it was seldom used. The old courthouse was a maze of cramped passageways and narrow staircases, and Theo knew every one of them. He entered the courtroom from a side door next to the jury box. The place was buzzing with the nervous chatter of spectators about to see something dramatic. Uniformed guards milled about, chatting with one another and looking important. There was a crowd at the main door as people were still trying to get in. On the left side of the courtroom, in the third row behind the defense table, Theo saw a familiar face. It was his uncle Ike, and he was saving a seat for his favorite and only nephew. Theo wiggled and darted down the row and wedged himself into a tight spot next to Ike. And that's the end of chapter 1.